We will call this meeting to order. When I disappear, it's not because I'm not here, it's because I have to jump back and forth on my screen. So I apologize. But called the meeting to order at 5 o'clock. And let's see. Where are we? I'm looking for, there we go. Okay, so Karen, any adjustments to the agenda?
Yeah, I just want to make a correction, Josh, first off. So I have October 10th as a date, but it should be October 7th, 5 p.m.
Okay.
And I want to add equity and inclusion appointment under select board items.
Okay. Sounds good. Okay, so any other adjustments?
No.
Yeah,
Okay.
Well,
Yeah,
I just want to say Claire Wilson turns. Can I say something?
not during adjustments to the agenda, but you can in
Oh,
public.
yeah. Later.
Yeah, okay, so we'll move to approval of minutes. So we're still waiting on, I meant to check with Larry about that yesterday, but I forgot. So we'll, if you want to make a motion, David, to approve the minutes of September 23rd and 25th.
Motion to approve the minutes from September 23rd to 25th, 2020.
Somebody, Alyssa, can you mute? It sounds like you're typing.
Sorry.
Okay, good. Thank you. So I will second the motion to approve the minutes of September 23rd and 25th. If there's no further discussion, all those in favor? Aye. Okay. And then we'll go to warrants.
I didn't see the warrants, Karen.
They got sent earlier today, David, at about 3:20 this afternoon. They came in. So, David, you want to make a motion to approve and execute the minutes? I mean, the warrants?
I'll make a motion to approve and execute the warrants upon review.
All right, it's been moved and I will second that motion. It's been moved and seconded to approve the warrants upon completion of review. If there's no further discussion, all in favor? Aye.
so payroll warrant dated October 9th, 2020 in the amount of $18,488.58. Any questions?
Not from me.
It's standard payroll. Accounts payable from September 26th through October 9th, 2020 in the amount of $113,770.95. In this warrant, we have a lease payment for the Caterpillar excavator for $18,292.46. And we have our first payment for the 2020 Western Star dump truck at $38,447.75.
And the town of Dummerston is gravel pit related?
Those are property taxes. So our share
For the pit.
for the pit, correct.
Okay. All right. Harvest Central Mortgage Company. Oh, that's a refund, taxpayer refund.
Yes.
Okay. All right. David, you got any questions about that?
No.
Okay. Sorry, am I on screen or not on screen when I'm doing this?
You're frozen.
Oh, okay. Sorry, I can't do it otherwise.
Okay.
So, Okay, so that's it for warrants. Okay, so public comment on items not on the agenda. It sounded like maybe Ms. Mondon had something to say.
Let me unmute her. You're muted, Eva.
Am I there? Okay, Claire Wilson will turn 90 years old on October 29th. I would like the town to send out a certificate to her. She's done since 1964. She's lived in the town and done wonderful work for the town, served as justice of the peace, been on all kinds of committees. And I would like it if she would get some kind of certificate from the town thanking her for her good work.
Or at least a card, certificate or card.
Yeah,
Okay.
something. Yeah, it would mean a great deal to her.
Sounds good.
I had her. Pardon?
What was the date?
It's October 29th.
Okay, thanks.
And I had her over at the Quaker Meeting House daycare yesterday on the kids' swing, and she was swinging higher than I was on the swing. Anyway, let's go back to the work of the town.
Okay. I don't see a whole lot of public on this meeting under participants. So are there any other public comments on items not on the agenda? You don't have anything in a chat box, Alyssa?
No.
Okay, so next we will move on to select board items for discussion and action. And I see that we have both Jeff Austin and Jeff or Jeffrey Mclver, whichever you go by. Welcome to both of you. Thanks for coming, and it's all yours.
Great. Thank you very much for the invite this evening. We're very happy to be sitting in front of you, in a way, over the computer. But what we wanted was we'd love to talk to you this evening about the work that we're actually doing with your neighbors across the river. I don't know if you're aware of it, but we have we've built some partnerships with Westmoreland, Walpole, Chesterfield.
Can you just for the record tell us who you are and who you represent? Sorry.
Too excited, jumping right out of the gate into things. So my name is Jeff Mclver. I work for Consolidated Communications. I've been with the company for almost 10 years now. I work on the consumer products side of the business, but my major focus is on meeting with towns, with municipalities, and trying to determine how we can come up with a better solution as far as broadband and to improve those speeds throughout town, whether it's a part of the town or a complete town solution. And then I'll let Jeff Austin introduce himself.
Good afternoon, everyone. Jeff Austin, Consolidated Communications. I'm the Director of Government Relations and External Affairs. I work really close with Jeff just on broadband opportunities. I work with the legislature. I work with the Department of Public Service. Anytime there's something related to the Public Utility Commission, I get involved in that. I've actually been with a company, you guys know, it's been several different companies over the last couple decades. So I started here with NYNEX back in 1994. So I've been here 26 years, and I've had a various types of jobs here. Most recently, prior to this job, I was the engineering manager for Vermont. So a lot of my background is in engineering here in Vermont. When you're talking about technology and internet and voice and things like that. So if you have any questions related to that, Jeff's going to go through a bunch of stuff. We're just going to jump in just about broadband availability, technology, really good conversations, if that's okay with you guys.
Sounds great. Thank you.
Welcome.
Perfect. And do I have the ability to share?
Karen, can you do that for him?
I think I can. But give me a second.
No problem. Thank you.
You have an echo also, Karen. I'm not sure what that is, but.
I can't help you with that. Make presenter.
There you go. So you are sharing now.
All right, very good. Well, so again, we have some exciting things happening across the river. We're here tonight to share some of that information with you. And also, we want this as two-sided as possible. So as we go through these slides, if you have questions, please feel free to throw those out there for us. All right, so I'm going to keep the beginning part of it brief. We're just going to do a little overview of who CCI is. I think everybody in this room or on this app tonight knows who Fairpoint was. But Consolidated Communications, again, we've been around now for 2+ years here in New England. However, we have presence from California to the Northeast. So we are a national company, and so we want to talk a little bit about who we are, the direction we're going, where we're going, and then I'd like to dive into the broadband discussion. So the breakdown there is we're going to discuss what the current layout is as far as our equipment and speeds throughout town now, and then what we'll talk about is what we're doing elsewhere. Hopefully generate some conversation there as far as maybe where Putney can go, and then talk about what's the next steps. How do we improve your speeds if that's the direction that you want to go in.
Correct me if I'm wrong. I think you also relatively recently purchased Southern Vermont Cable. Is that correct?
No, we did not. That was Comcast.
Oh, sorry. Okay.
No problem. Go ahead.
I'm just wondering how many people in the town of Putney, and I may be jumping the gun, and I'm sorry if I am. How many people in the town of Putney are you the broadband providers for currently? Do you know?
So we have about 1,800 qualified address in Putney, and we'll get a little further into that as we go along too.
Okay, sounds good.
So what you're looking at first here, again, I'm going to do the high level business side of things. We operate in 23 states. We have more than 44,000 fiber networks, and we're a top 10 fiber provider in the U.S. And then any questions in regards to this map? Jeff, anything else to add?
No, not on the map. Like Jeff said, this is just kind of a general overview. One of the things that we'll illustrate and talk about during this conversation is fiber. Fiber is certainly a key word as we're talking about broadband. So we'll go from like the national level, certainly down to the state level, and then down to the Putney level. So we'll get definitely more granular with you guys.
Yeah, and like Jeff said, so NNE, Northern New England network. So we have about 18,000 total fiber miles. And then our network operations center is 24/7, 365. And then we deliver the 99.999 or 59s core network availability. So something just to note here, as far as, and I mentioned this earlier, as far as direction or focus. So Fairpoint was very much focused as far as a business oriented. We, as Fairpoint, we were doing everything we could to work on that larger business scale. And then as far as Consolidated Communications, very consumer driven. So we're doing everything we can right now to improve within our call centers, to improve on the way that we're answering the phones, all the way to coming out to residents for repairs. The speeds at which both of those are taken care of, and doing everything we can to make it a better customer service moving forward. So
And even part of that, if I can, even part of that is forums like this, right? Being available, having folks available. Normally, Jeff and I would have driven down to Putney and we could have met in a building and met everybody. It's 2020. This is kind of what we need to do. But our availability is here. I'm in Vermont, Jeff's in New Hampshire. So if people have questions, I know that Karen sent over some questions that we'll go through, during this meeting. If you have questions, reach out to us. We're happy to engage in Putney. If you have surrounding towns that you guys are working with, great, let us know. So to Jeff's point, Consolidated's much more, it took a few years, right? This is our third year in Northern New England as Consolidated. And there was a big acquisition for Consolidated to purchase the Fairpoint territory. So we've got to come in, we've got to get the foundation built, and then we've got to go take the next steps. And these are part of the next steps and a lot more stuff that Jeff and I will talk about tonight.
And then, like Jeff said, if there are future meetings where you would prefer an in-house presence. I was up above Franconia Notch earlier in the week and over in Long Island, the coast of Maine last week. So we'll do whatever the town wishes as far as how we would meet moving forward.
And one other thing, I don't know, Jeff, if you have this on your slide, but something just illustrative. I know we're going to talk more about fiber. In 2011 in Vermont, just to give you an idea, we had about 1,100 miles of fiber. Today, we have about 3,900 miles of fiber. So there's been a lot of build out. There's been a lot of investment. We've invested a couple $100 million over that time in Vermont. But we also cover 7,800 square miles of Vermont, every nook and cranny from the backside of Norton Pond, obviously to downtowns, in more urban areas. So it's every nook and cranny, and certainly trying to get the best service and the highest broadband out has been one of our objectives. We've done a lot of builds. We probably haven't done a great job of marketing or partnering with towns like we're doing now. But I just wanted to, as we were going to talk about fiber, just getting it down to the Vermont level, there's been a lot of fiber and investment. And then I'll let Jeff talk about Putney and fiber, and I'll jump in there.
Yeah. So that actually brings us to our next slide here. So, and Jeff, if you wanted to talk through this one, this is
Sure.
the fiber that's around Putney.
So the way that we built, I should say, our network is we have a central office, and you guys know we have a central office there in Southern Putney, and that's really where all of the intelligence is of the network. Right, that's where all the equipment is. That's where all the electronics are. That was originally back when it was only voice and copper, which I know that some of you guys remember. That's where all the voice dial tone originated from. And then from there, it was copper all the way out to every address. Really, a lot of transmission design is kind of what we called it. And so the evolution is, okay, now fiber comes into play. Different than copper, can go further, can have, you can put more data, you can put more everything on fiber. So as you can see, all the yellow lines coming out of the central office, which is in the southern part of the town, all of those yellow lines are fiber going to different areas. Now, originally we used fiber to get between towns, right, between those central offices, so we can move more traffic and more data between our own network. Well, in the regular evolution of technology here, then we started deploying fiber further out into the network. You can see that we have, basically what we do is we have fiber running to different areas of town. And on those yellow pins that you see, those are remote terminals. So we have voice and data equipment at those remote terminals. Basically what we're doing is we're extending the intelligence of the central office closer, further out on the fiber, closer to customers, because as you guys probably know and have experienced, our internet service that we offer today is distance sensitive, right? We offer internet out of the central office, but obviously Putney's a pretty big area. We can't cover everybody out of the central office. So we put remote terminals out there connected to the fiber to get closer, to get more people qualified for internet, and to get higher speeds qualified. Now, you can see just here illustratively, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4. We've got 5 remote terminals in Putney, even a couple remote terminals north of there that serve some customers in Putney. But the other point on this, and it's one of the questions that Karen asked, where did some of this money come from, right? You have to build electronics. You know, some of these locations probably to run the fiber and put the electronics were in the $100,000, $150,000 range. Technology evolves, equipment gets smaller, it gets a little less expensive. So that's not how much it costs today, but that's how much it costs like in 2013. So some of that was on Connect America funding. Connect America funding is really the FCC's, one of their original broadband funding sources at the federal level. So that was Connect America funding 1. And we did a lot of that work back in that 2013 timeframe. Like a lot of the stuff we did in Putney was in that 2013 kind of timeframe. So Connect America funding was one of the programs where funding came from, again, federal funding. We had one program, which was just part of the acquisition between Fairpoint and, Fairpoint from Verizon. That was one of the projects. So most of it was Connect America 1 funding with one project thrown in there, which was just part of another program. But through all that, now there's also other things, right? Cell towers. I'm not sure how well you guys have cell coverage, but we provide carrier services. So we provide fiber to cell towers. Cell service is wireless, only back to the tower, and then from the tower back to their main transfer stations, it's all fibered. We also run fiber to businesses and schools and government agencies, and we're running more fiber. We've started running fiber to residential folks in Vermont, and we can talk more about that. But if you're looking at the picture today, this represents about 18 miles or so of fiber that we have in Putney today. So that's kind of where we start the conversation is, what do we have today? And then what are we doing, that which would actually be something that we can kind of swerve into, is this is how we basically built the network over the last 12 years, let's say, give or take. It was a lot of DSL, and DSL has different technologies. There's asynchronous digital subscriber line. There's very high bit rate. We've been evolving our DSL service as technology has evolved, so higher speeds. We can get up to 100 meg service download, 40 meg upload on some of the equipment we're deploying today on VDSL. So we've evolved, but ultimately, people want to talk about fiber and talk about fiber to the prem. And this pandemic certainly has created a lot more focus on needs of internet, and good download speeds, sometimes more importantly, good upload speeds, symmetrical, which means same speed up and down. So I'm going to stop there. I will kind of go into more of, and then Jeff can do this too, about New Hampshire and about fiber to the premise, right? Fiber to the premise is getting fiber available to go right into your home. Higher speeds, better service quality, all that stuff. But I'll stop there and see if you guys have any questions before going on. Okay. So Jeff, I feel like this is probably, we can, if you want to go to how our service is covered, if you want to cover that, and then we'll talk about New Hampshire and keep on trucking.
Yes. Yeah. So the next 3 slides are all going to be of maps, and we can move through these as quickly as you'd like. Jeff did cover a little bit there as far as the speed goes with our current technology out there, as far as being distance sensitive. Again, so the further you are away from our equipment, the slower your speed is, right? So here's a good example of this. You can see this grouping of the 60 to 80. I'm assuming if we were to go back there, there'd be a piece of equipment there. As you get away from it, you're going to drop from 25 to 40, then 10 to 20, and then eventually you're going to get to this 768K to 7 meg speed, right? These red dots that you see, these currently are so far away from equipment right now that they do not qualify for a speed. So these residents do come up in our system, but they come up as not being able to have any kind of a speed because they're so far away from a piece of equipment.
Just to give you guys an idea.
Jeff, did you want to let me go back?
No, I was just wanted to just to give you guys perspective. There's about, like Jeff said, about 1,800 end user line identifiers that we have in Putney. So addresses, usually they correlate to addresses. About 62 of those are those red, where they don't qualify for anything today.
So again, this is that northern view. You can see that grouping of them up top in the town. And then, you have your again, the speed's getting slower as you get up to this area with those blues. And if I go to the next slide, so here you have, again, the larger population. So this is a majority of the 60 to 80s. You can see another grouping here. And then the speeds get slower as you get away from the, I'm assuming we have this is where the central office is. So your speeds are going to get slower as you get away from that. Any questions with the maps? Okay, so here's a good breakdown of what we were just looking at. So if you take in all those pinpoints, right, this breaks it down. So this first pie chart that we're looking at the left, so these are our current customers. So the current customers and what they take as a speed. So this isn't what they're qualified for. This is what they take as their speed, what they're purchasing. So they're currently purchasing, 53 are purchasing between anything up to 7. 29% have between that 10 to 20, and then 18% have between the 25 to 100. Now, the reason why I'm showing you these two pie charts is this is what they're actually capable of receiving for speed. So if they did want to pay a little more, they 52% of the town actually could get into that 25 to 100 meg range. 22% is in that 10 to 20, and then you still have that 26 percent, again smaller than 53, but 26% really can't get out of that up to 7 meg if they were looking to go any higher than that.
Can you tell me, does this represent how much of this represents shared infrastructure, not necessarily shared, but overlapping infrastructure with Comcast? I mean, when you say 52% of customers could have it, is that 52% of residents in Putney, or is that 52% of the people that you currently supply?
So this is 52% of our customers. So this is the customers that we supply. Now, if you go to this right table, right? So again, this is for the entire town. So this is for the 1,800 total addresses that we have within our territory, right? 49% of them are qualified for that 25 to 100. Now, some of them might have the option to have Comcast, right? Just like some of them might have the option to have Comcast in the 21 and the 26, but this is the speeds that they qualify for our pieces of equipment, if that makes sense.
So again, just point of clarity, 1,806 total addresses. From your perspective, and I'm just not sure about this, is that the total number of residences in Putney, or is that the total number of residences who have internet in Putney of some sort?
Yep, so that's the total number of addresses that we have in our system in Putney, that's in Putney.
So, right, but do all of those addresses already have the infrastructure in place to have at least some level of internet, or is that?
Yep. So
okay.
3%, right? This 3% here, they're currently not capable of reaching any speed, right? So that was those red dots in the previous maps.
Yeah.
Then the other parts of this pie chart, so the other 97%, those residents or within Putney are capable of achieving some speed. Some of them, it's only 768K,
Right.
but they can get a speed through us. Now, again, you know, there might be a residence that can only get 768K through us. However, they can get 100 meg through Comcast, you know,
Right.
potentially.
Yeah.
And that'll make a little more sense as far as how that breakdown goes with the process that we're going through in New Hampshire, as far as collecting that data. So we'll talk about that in a little bit too. But and then just a couple more pieces to call out before we move on to what we're doing in New Hampshire. So there are 14 serving units. So that means that those pieces of equipment throughout town, they're either pieces of equipment, are pieces of equipment within town, or they're pieces of equipment from other towns that are coming in. So there's 14 total pieces of consolidated equipment that helps bring, you know, speeds into those houses. I think I said that right, Jeff, right?
Yeah. Yep.
And then 38% of existing subscribers. So again, looking at these two charts, 38% of the existing subscribers have reached their max speed. Okay. So that's why you can see that, you know, this 18% here can actually move to a 52%. So 62% of residents actually could achieve a higher speed, you know, if they wanted to pay more. Any questions? All right. So moving over into, again, I know this is about New Hampshire. However, I think that there are, you know, some, as far as the New Hampshire process goes, I think it translates over to Vermont. We will talk through the process, and hopefully there's a way that we could, you know, look into this a little further with you and eventually have one of these kind of partnerships like we do in New Hampshire. So the current process in New Hampshire, and I'll send you like a high level bulleted, you know, order on how this works, but a town will decide to, that they want to, you know, again, move forward with improving their broadband. They either assign a lead for the town, they'll create a broadband committee, and that group will then create a request for information. So an RFI, right, is sent out through all providers that provide service within their town. Now in New Hampshire, you can only bond for any speeds under 25 meg down and 3 meg up. So it's the FCC definition of broadband. In Vermont, and Jeff, please correct me if I'm wrong, I believe in Vermont that there isn't that specification, right? You can bond for any speed, right?
Yeah, I believe you can bond for any speed. The only speed requirements are if you're looking for a broadband grant, like a Vermont connectivity grant, or participate in a Vermont program, then that's only for the 25.3. But yeah, for bonding purposes, I don't believe that there's a requirement.
Okay, so you might even be able to skip over that step of that process. So all providers will send in their information. The town will determine the percentage of underserved. So in a lot of cases, you know, it's anywhere between 76% was the lowest, and it can be all the way up to 100% that doesn't, you know, meet that 25.3 criteria. So their next step is they would send out a request for proposal or an RFP, and they would send it out to any provider out there that they would like to move forward with, and by the end of the year, they're hoping for some responses back, and we'll select a provider, and then as part of the bond council and the bond process, they have to hold so many informational sessions within, you know, before it can go before a March vote. So in these cases, with the towns that I'm about to talk about that had selected us, the select board would host 3 meetings. They would invite us to these meetings, and we would stand before the town and do a presentation as far as, you know, what the project is, what the product we're using, where we're going to be, how installation will work, a high-level timeline. We will demo our streaming service, our TV streaming service, and we'll stand in front of the room and answer, as many questions as the town might have. And then it goes before a town vote. And then once the bond is available, we're there the next week laying fiber. So as you can see on the screen, the fiber to the hometown. So we've built these partnerships up with 6 towns now. Their Chesterfield was the original. And then last year we had 5 towns vote in favor of us having this partnership. Westmoreland, Walpole, Rindge, Harrisville, and Dublin were the next 5. They all voted in March. They received their bonds the second week of August. We were laying fiber the third week. And in a couple of slides, I'll actually show you our very aggressive timeline. And I joke around every time I show that, but please no flash photography during that part, because our agreement with the town is that we would have this built in about 1.5 to 2 years. However, we're moving much faster than that, and we only do that just in case we run into any major issues as far as weather or anything else that might delay the project.
So I just want to be mindful of time.
Okay.
We're fine on time, but I want to keep you moving. I'm wondering if you can describe a little bit, and you may be coming to this, but what your relationship, we've been exploring a unified communications district, and I'm just wondering, is there overlap between you and that concept? And if so, how does that work?
Happy to answer that, Josh. There's a lot of there's been a lot of movement in 2020 with communication union districts. As you guys know, they were created by the legislature, kind of like a water district or any other district, for that can build out telecommunication services, fiber to the prem services. So there's one CUD EC Fiber that actually is providing service today. They started in 2008. They're building some towns, obviously, in East Central Vermont. And so they went out, they did their own thing. And so there's not a lot of overlap or synergies with us and them, just because they were already moving. They already have a business model, and they're going kind of without us. Now, all of the other CUDs, though, we have either talked, for example, I have my list, actually, I've got my map of all the CUDs right here, right next to my monitor. There's the Southern Vermont CUD that we did a presentation for, and really talking about stuff like we're talking about now. How do we partner? What are the opportunities to get together? Because we are on every pole. We're already in towns. We already have fiber, a network that's already built. We are building fiber to the prem now in Vermont, and we're going to be building a heck of a lot more of it. So how do we create these synergies that make sense, whether it's a single town like Putney or whether it's a CUD like the Southern Valley CUDs? And so we're open for any type of partnership that ultimately can move the ball forward, right? That can help the towns, that can help us. So I will be honest with you, it's been hot or cold. Some CUDs won't return our calls, even though the idea of a CUD is to be collaborative, right? And to look for all options and be really creative. And really at the end, it's the end result that everybody's looking for. Some CUDs, like I said, that we've met with and we have expressed an interest, basically saying that everything is on the table. If there's an idea, we'd love to talk to them about it. Because we are building, right? We are extending fiber. We do have programs in Vermont, and we are investing a lot of money here. So if there's a CUD, we're happy to work with them. If there's a single town, like the ones in New Hampshire that Jeff has been talking about, those are folks who came on a town level, like Putney, and said, we're interested in making improvements here, and we're interested in doing it under our control, and we're interested in doing it quickly with with a partner that we know can build it and deliver, with the services. So that's kind of, we're kind of open to anything, but at this point, like I said, on the CUD level, we're open for CUDs. We're open for any opportunities. We've had conversations with a lot of them. We're going to have conversations with more. And whether it's a town or a CUD level, we're happy to be engaged.
So am I right in assuming that if we, for example, were to join a CUD, which we've been exploring, that you guys would be likely to be, if it were then bonded, that you guys would likely to be a bidder on that project? Is that a reasonable assumption or not?
Yeah. No, I think that's fair. Whether you are in a CUD or not, if you guys decided or the CUD decided to put an RFP out to do fiber to the prem in town or a bigger area, you can pretty much count on us being involved in that process.
Okay,
Yep.
Thank you. I just wanted to be clear.
Sure.
So I'm showing right now, this is that aggressive timeline, just to kind of give you an idea as far as what we're talking about here. So again, if you were to vote, so if we did get down the road, you determined that you wanted to go ahead with us as a provider, and then it went before the March vote. The bonds were available, like I said, the second week of August. Fiber construction started August 24th, and it's a little easier just to read this part. So build weeks 2 through 17, August 24th. We would start doing installs within town by the end of November, and mid-December, December 15th. And we would have the entire, so anybody that pre-registered for a fiber service, they would have it by May of the following year. So in the case of the 5 towns that we partnered with, May of next year, anybody that pre-registered, we're planning on having them installed. So just move it a year out. So, you vote for it next March. If the bonds doesn't become available till August, everyone that wanted fiber up front, they would have that by the middle of the following year.
Yeah, and Jeff, you mind if I jump in? I just wanted to just go over a couple of things. So, for example, if the town of Putney was interested in looking to get somebody to provide fiber to the prem, certainly, if you wanted us to give you more information, you wanted to enter into a non-disclosure agreement, and we share information. If you wanted to put out an RFP and work with us on the fiber to the prem, if we were awarded it, that's all things that are available, what Jeff's talking about now, outside of Vermont connectivity grants and CUDs or any of that. So like I said, whether it's a CUD or a single town, those opportunities are there. We haven't had a single town in Vermont yet, even though they've had multiple towns in New Hampshire work with us on this capacity. So we're excited to work with a town or a CUD on an opportunity like this. And the bonds, to give you an idea on the bonds would be something the town would take out, and the town would go and take out a revenue bond. That we would have, there's a lot of legal stuff that we'd have to go through, but we'd figure out how much is that bond. Is it a 20-year bond? And how much is a yearly payment required of that bond? And then we would work out between us and the town, okay, how much do you need as a town on a yearly basis from the revenues as we build it and we get the revenues? How much do you need for us to pay that bond? And that's how you end up paying the bond. So the taxpayers, there's no increase in the tax base. There's no liability on the taxpayer side, but it's a really good tool to use to get fiber, like Jeff said, get fiber to the prem in a large area in a timely manner, because these things do get built, they take priority, they get built very quickly with these partnerships. So that's just something, and Jeff, I don't know, hopefully I didn't steal any of your thunder, but just wanted to kind of say that there's a path, and when that path is very clear as we've done in New Hampshire, and we are very excited to work with somebody in Vermont to do something like we've done over in New Hampshire. I just wanted to throw that out there.
Yeah, and I'll maybe just kind of try to summarize that just a little more. So again, just like Jeff said, the town takes the bond out, but the subscribers to that fiber, they pay a monthly fee that goes on top of what they normally would pay for services. We collect that fee and then we give that back to the town on a monthly basis so they can turn around and pay the bond off. And this goes on for 20 years. Now that subscriber fee, we've talked this through with the 5 towns this year, and they have a lower fixed rate. I think it's $7.30 is the lowest for one town, and that's the subscriber fee over the next 20 years. The town of Dublin, New Hampshire, they elected to have their fee drop over a 20-year period, so it starts at $11 per subscriber, and that's going to be reassessed every 2 years. It can never go up; it can only go down. And after 2 years, depending on how quickly that bond's being paid off, we'll drop that rate down because you can't pay the bond off early. So it could drop down to $10.50, $10. But again, that subscriber fee is what pays for the bond. So there's no increase to taxes.
So we technically would only be the administrators in that we would be receiving payment from you that would then go to a bond. We would not be the billing agent. Is that correct?
Correct. So we would be the operators for the 20-year period. And then after the 20 years is up, again, the town owns that network, the fiber network, and then the town has some decisions. So they can send out another RFP and bring in another provider to run that network. They can renegotiate our contract, and we'll continue to operate that network. Or if they have enough people on the ground that know about the network, they could also run it themselves too. So there are those 3 options after the 20-year contract is up.
One more question related to that. What is your assurance that you have enough subscribers to underwrite that bond appropriately?
Yeah, so what we'll run actually that through business models depending on how many miles of fiber we receive estimates from our engineering team. We determine what the level of penetration basically for the town is for subscribers, and we'll come up with that number. Now, there's that period, right, where the town receives the bond and there's no fiber on the ground yet, right? So we know that there's going to be like a 5-month period, 6-month period before subscribers start paying in, and we actually cover any shortfalls between that subscriber fee and collecting the subscriber fee for the town. So if we don't collect enough subscriber fee in the first 6 months, it's not coming out of the town's pocket, it's coming out of our pocket.
Question about that.
Yep.
Go ahead.
The covering the shortfall, for how many years will Consolidated cover the shortfall?
But we're under agreement to cover it, the shortfall through the 20.
Through the 20 years.
Yep.
And given the history that you both sort of described coming into this meeting, it seems relatively unlikely, if not all but impossible, that Consolidated would actually be at least the name behind this operation for a full 20 years. How would that work out if and when you were gobbled up by somebody else?
Jeff, you probably know more about the language in there, but there's language in the contracts about owning and operating, and if there's another buyer and things like that. So it's all worked out in in the gory legal world in the language of the contract. But obviously, we would ensure that the purchaser of it, let's say somebody did purchase the area or purchase Putney, then part of the contract or part of the sale would be an agreement to adhere to the contract details of providing the service.
And we would have reasonable assurance of that going in if we were thinking about this.
Exactly. Yep.
And I would even be willing to share with you an agreement that we've had with one of the other towns ahead of time. So, it could, help as far as those lines are concerned.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, Mr. Fairman, go ahead.
You have raised some very valid points here. We should note that Consolidated Communications is the third telephone company to as successor to Verizon after they sold their landline business. So generally, when parties to a contract are parties to a contract as long as they are there. If Consolidated is sold, as the others were, and it was not under good circumstances when they were sold, a good question is, will we in fact still have a contract?
Right.
Just to clarify, I think it was Verizon and then Fairpoint and then Consolidated. So so it's two, but you bring up a good point. The point is valid, and that's where we know today we can build the network. We have the capacity, we have the technology, and we're building it. We're building it in Vermont, Maine, and New Hampshire, in other places, and we're going to build it, in more places. So that's where, and not skirting the question because it's a valid question. That's where we would want to make sure that all the legal folks, which would be involved in this process, that you're comfortable as a town with the legal language. We're building, obviously, we'd be building a state-of-the-art network in the area with fiber to the prem. And then, we're comfortable with the language, you'd be comfortable with the language. It's a long way from this conversation, but it definitely is part of the process.
Yeah.
Mr.
David,
Chairman?
You got any questions, David? You're on mute.
I don't rate this minute, but I will. It's a lot to digest.
Yeah.
I'll get back to you for sure.
And we can have a follow-up Zoom meeting if you guys want, because it's a lot to talk. And we're getting into some details, but it's a lot really to kind of unpack here. So if you guys wanted to talk about this internally and invite us back, we'd be happy to follow up with anything.
Definitely. Yep.
That would be great. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, Mr. Fairman, go ahead.
It bears mentioning that while Consolidated Communications landline telephone business is still regulated by the Vermont Public Utilities Commission, their internet business is regulated by the U.S. Federal Communications Commission. So in terms of any appeal we might have to anything that they're doing here, we would be dealing with the federal government, not with the government of the state of Vermont.
Which I'm assuming you would point out as a disadvantage, not an advantage. Is that correct?
Well, not necessarily, Mr. Chairman. I'm simply saying that that's the way it is. And by the way, I have not checked recently, but a few months ago, I spoke with the head of the Vermont Bond Bank, who said that they were not doing revenue bonding in Vermont for communications union districts.
They're actually, EC Fiber has secured about $42 million in revenue bonds. So I'm not sure where they're getting that from exactly. That's public knowledge. It's on their website. So I'm not sure about, we'd have to work out the bond bank information with you guys and help you through that process if we had the ability. But that's a good point. I know that at least EC Fiber has received that much money from revenue bonds. I can't give you all the details just because I don't work there.
Okay, so I'm gonna just, time-wise, we've moved through quite a bit of time, and I really appreciate all this information. I want to make sure we have quite a few attendants on the meeting. I don't see any questions in the chat, but if anybody who is attending the meeting has any questions, this would be a good time if you want to either put something in the chat or speak up, because I can't see you all. All right, it doesn't sound, I'm not seeing anything right away. So are Jeff and Jeff, do you feel like you've done what you're trying to do?
Yeah, I think so. At least for me, I'm in Vermont, been here forever, and just want to support, the towns of Vermont. So, like I said, I encourage you guys to have those conversations and unpack this a little bit and follow up with us, and we'll be happy to stay engaged.
Yes.
Sounds good.
Thank you so much for your time this evening.
Yeah, thank you.
And
All right.
thank you. I have a lot of thoughts and a lot of questions, and now isn't the time, and hope to talk to you again soon. Thank you so much.
Great.
That sounds
Thank
great.
you.
We'll make ourselves available. Thank you.
Yeah, and I'm guessing really the next step for us, David, is to more formally look at, broadband committee group that will, I know we've had a lot of people interested, but I think we need to have that sort of more formal, because this is certainly beyond my scope to do comparison shopping kind of thing. So somebody with a whole lot more knowledge would be better equipped for that. So we should think about that. But all right, great. Thank you both very much.
Thanks, everyone.
Let's see, Jeff, you're going to have to unshare your screen or you're going to bind us up for quite a while if you hop off. Thank you.
I think I just did it. Thank you so much for your time this evening.
All right, thanks.
Take care.
Okay, so our next thing on our agenda is the Putney Historical Society lease, and I see Mr. Fairman's name listed after that. So I don't know whether there is also anybody attending from the Historical Society.
Lisa Papazian.
Oh, hi, Lisa. Okay, so Howard, what were you looking to bring up?
Well, Mr. Chairman, I believe the town manager has given you a copy of a letter that I wrote, which I also sent to the Historical Society, and I know because I've corresponded with Lisa that she has her copy. But to make it a public record, it's very brief. I'm simply going to read it.
Sounds good.
Next Stage Arts and Putney General Store exist thanks to Putney Historical Society. They could similarly renew Putney Town Hall. As I said during public discussion at the September 23rd, 2020 regular Select Board meeting regarding their proposed leasing of the upper floor, two organizations are talking about one building that everyone agrees needs work. Putney Historical Society have access to grants for cultural organizations, while the town of Putney has access to grants for governmental organizations. Both have access to energy efficiency and historic preservation grants. And Putney Historical Society have demonstrated expertise and experience to make renewal of our Putney Town Hall happen. Allowing them rent-free use of the upper floor is fair exchange. That's it.
Good. Well, thank you. Lisa, do you want to comment on that at all?
No, just to say a huge thank you to Howard for his wonderful vote of support and confidence in us. That is the spirit with which we are approaching this. I think he captured it exactly.
And I would say, certainly my opinion is it's the spirit with which we're interested in approaching it as well. Certainly goodwill all around. So we just need to keep figuring out how to keep it moving forward.
So Josh, can I make a recommendation?
Yes.
Because this is a lease agreement, I believe it should be discussed in executive session moving forward.
Yeah.
At least the terms, and then when there's an agreement and you take action as a board, then you can make the announcement.
Yeah, that sounds wise. I don't know that we'll do that today necessarily, But Karen and I will talk more about that and figure out what sort of the details we should have available to us. And then we will work towards achieving that so we can move to the next stage of conversation.
Lisa, will you be involved moving forward?
Yeah.
Okay.
I look forward to working with you both on that. I think I said this to Karen on the phone the other day after the last meeting that, the Historical Society has examples of these kind of good faith leases with Next Stage and with the proprietor of the general store. So we have examples of those kind of squishier leases that we can share with you. And maybe, that's a place to start.
Yes.
Sounds
All right.
good.
So we'll
Great.
talk.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Howard.
Thank you
Yeah.
very much, Howard.
You're welcome.
And I believe, sorry, going back and forth here, I believe Mr. Fairman is also listed on the next item, which we have, which is the fire truck bond.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, and similarly, I've asked the town manager to, I sent copies of a letter to the town manager, which I suppose she has given to you. And once again, it's not that long. To make it public, I propose to read it.
That sounds good. I'm actually not seeing a copy of that. I thought I saw it earlier, but Karen, do we?
Yes, it came late, like at
Okay, that
9.
okay. So that's from a
Around 3:59 p.m.
That's
yes,
right.
there we go. Yep. Okay,
Thank
so
you.
yeah, so Mr. Fairman, you can go ahead then.
All right. At Putney Town Meeting, voters approved via Australian ballot, shall general obligation bonds or notes of the town of Putney in the amount not to exceed $550,000, bearing an interest rate not to exceed 2% for a term not to exceed 10 years, be issued for the purpose of financing a new 2021 fire engine for the Putney Fire Department. After December 31st, 2020, the price of this fire engine will increase from $508,995 to $594,995, $86,000 more, exceeding and voiding voters' approval. Cost of bonding for this fire engine will increase from $536,653 to $627,326, $90,673 more. The current fire engine needs repairs estimated at more than $10,000, according to Chief Goddard. The new fire engine has extensive warranties, again, according to Chief Goddard. The latest Putney long-term debt projection, dated February 12, 2020, states that the total cost of Town of Putney debt service will decrease by $33,930 in the coming fiscal year and by $59,878 in the following fiscal year. Should we save more now or pay more later for a new fire engine? And in this regard, the town manager is aware that I'm going to ask her this question. There's a deadline coming up for when she can apply for bonding to have it take effect during this year so we can get the lower price. And I asked the town manager to tell me the latest date of a regular town meeting where you, the members of the select board, could decide to go ahead with the bonding. May I ask the town manager now, please, what that date is?
So it's going to be mid-December, Howard, when the application needs to be submitted to the bond bank.
Well, this is good news. So we have plenty of time. I had heard clearly an error that the deadline was today, but good news that it isn't. So basically what I'm saying is my ultimate question is, I know that there's pros and cons here, but basically we can save more now or we can pay more later. Which should we do?
I wish there was a clear answer to that. You know, I think what we, I'm speaking for myself, but having had conversations with David, most of which you all have witnessed as a result of them being in open session, have been the concern about the economy going forward. I think that we very clearly understand the rationale for wanting to do this sooner in order to save a large quantity of money. I'm also, you know, we are definitely in a moment of significant uncertainty of what the next at least handful, if not multiple years, will hold for people and what their economic means will look like. So while I don't disagree with your math at all, I feel that our ability to collect taxes and people's ability to keep paying for something that is that significant a purchase is there's risk involved, and I'm still not certain for myself, and I don't know how to come to that decision, but I guess I'm personally buying time on knowing that it doesn't have to be made quite yet. But part of that, Karen, I think I asked you, and I don't know whether you had the chance to do this too. Can you comment at all about how our September tax payment collection went compared to previous history?
Previous history I couldn't pull up, and I'll have to see if I can get the specific dates, but as you collect money, it just keeps, you know, it just shows the paid column. It doesn't tell you, it doesn't give us a specific date. So from like July 1st to the first payment in August, I tried to do that today, but I was unsuccessful. I can tell you right now that for 2020, we still need to collect 3.2 million. Right now, for the first payment, we have $96,092 outstanding. The other factors too, Josh, that we really need to look at is state funding. So whether it's grant money, I can tell you the state education is down $100,000 from last year that the state usually supplements the town for. I have not heard about funding for highway projects. And I'm still waiting on the current use as well, because I know we get about $99,000 from the state that supplements current use. So there's a lot of different factors to look at. And just from this first payment this year, we still need to pay the school their money. And if we don't have it, we're going to be borrowing that money. So, I mean, we're in good shape right now. But I don't, like you said, I don't know what it's going to look like in a year. It could be a totally different picture.
You're clear about the deadline on the bond bank. There's not a preliminary. We don't need to do anything preliminary on that. We basically just need to make a decision within the next 2 months. Is that correct?
So so I'm going to have to go through a webinar, and then we have to proceed with the application process, which is going to be the same as the gravel pit. And we have to make sure all our T's are crossed and our I's are dotted. And then mid-December, we submit the application, and when we submit, we're committed at that point. And then it all goes out with all the other applications, and whoever is the lowest, interest will end up getting awarded. It's usually in January, and then the money comes in the spring.
Yeah. You know, the other thing that occurs to me about the possibility of this purchase is that, you know, we are hearing, and not that they are not being completely straightforward in their discussions with us, that prices are going to increase by X amount starting January. I would have to imagine that cancellation of fire truck and or just lack of purchases of this type from municipalities is likely to help level off, if not even potentially decrease sales and therefore maybe even prices. And that would be complete speculation on my part, but I'm pretty, I think we're probably pretty safe in guessing that these companies are going to be looking to do business going forward and are going to be motivated beyond what they're showing right now, just because the market, when we first explored this, was, I'm sure, very different than it is today and that it is going to be over the next year or two. So, and again, that's strictly guesswork on my part and might be a foolish assumption, but that would, and I know Tom accurately has said that, you know, what we don't know is how tariffs and trade deals, et cetera, will affect these things going forward. But I'm guessing there are going to be quite a few manufacturers who are going to be hoping to make sales. So don't know. But I think David, unless you disagree with me, I think we're both pretty clear that we're not ready to move forward on this right at this moment anyway.
No, we've had this discussion before, and Tom and I have talked, and Karen and I have talked, and all that. There's too many variables right now. Like you said, Karen, there's not enough information in from the state. We don't know what's happening with the taxes, and we have a little more time, and I'd like to use that time to be able to make a choice in a more informed way. And I also feel that we would like to get the truck for as little as possible. What Howard is saying makes perfect sense to me too.
Yeah.
But I don't feel like I have that information tonight to make that choice. So,
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Mr. Fairman.
I have achieved my goal. The reason I intervened in this meeting was at the last meeting, we had a discussion where we talked about this number and that number, but we really didn't connect any dots.
Yes.
So I said, okay, I'm going to come to this meeting and connect some dots, and we'll probably have a more extensive discussion, which we have had, and thank you for that. I shall be back at the next meeting on this topic, and in the meantime, I'll give the town manager a heads up on that. I'm going to be working on the question of impact on the tax rate.
Yeah, sounds good. Thank you. Tom, I think I interrupted you when you were maybe going to make a comment. Do you have anything?
Just one thing, Josh, pertaining to what you had mentioned. Just for what it's worth, just for information purposes only. In fact, all the big major apparatus manufacturers, believe it or not, they're selling trucks.
Are they?
Yeah.
You know, I would guess, and this would be the counter argument to my argument. My guess would be that because of historical interest rates, you know, when you're looking at purchases of that scale, when you're talking about interest rates in the, you know, very low single digits, that makes it pretty darn appealing. So it'll be interesting to see how that pans out. But, you know, I just think, and you know, unfortunately, between now and the middle of December, the likelihood of us having significant enough sort of crystal ball into anything towards what the economy is going to look like a year from now is going to be very limited. So it's going to be some guesswork at the end, but I think I agree that, you know, the more data we can collect on how we're being affected in the meantime is probably a good thing. So we'll keep it on the stovetop, but keep it towards the back for the moment. So again, the question of we still have participants, and if any, does anybody out there in the internet group have questions or comments? I am not seeing any. So that being the case, I want, oh, let's see. Sorry.
Josh,
Yeah.
I just want to make an announcement that anybody that has their initials in as who they are, they need to message me with their names for the
Yes.
minutes.
This is in fact a meeting that is subject to public meeting law, to open meeting law. So in fact, one is required to identify themselves if they want to, certainly if they want to participate anyway. I'm not sure about if they want to be present but not participate. I'm guessing they would still have to identify themselves to be legally on this site, but I could be wrong about that. So just as per Alyssa's request, if anybody is not fully identified, please do so with your full name. Thank you. So our next topic for Select Board is Select Board member status. I'll just give a quick rundown on that. David and I met yesterday with council to discuss that. And we are not obligated to appoint somebody. We both would like to appoint somebody and are happy to appoint somebody for a variety of different reasons. But there have been a few people who have submitted their names showing an interest. Thank you to those people. And there have been a few people who have given names more casually. If you want to really be considered, you should submit some version of a written aspect of that, and just that would be to Karen, just saying I would like, or to myself or to David, but an email just saying I would like to be considered for this position. We are not, the steps involved in how to approach them are not statutorily clear. So again, we've had sort of a handful, and I have reached out, and I've reached out to a couple people who I thought might be well qualified for this. So there are several names sort of floating at the moment, and David and I are going to meet again shortly to figure out how to go through those names. But again, if you're interested and want to be truly considered, we need to have some sort of a request, a written request in that respect. And for those of you who have already done that, thank you. And we will be in touch with you shortly. Beyond that,
Josh, could I interrupt? This is
yes.
Ann Carey. I just want to say that I'm here by phone.
Okay, thanks, Ann. Then, yeah, the process going forward, I mean, as most people who are potentially interested in this probably know, this would only be an appointment until town meeting in March. So anybody who was interested in being there, well, that would be the case even if it were filling out somebody else's term, because that's the way statute reads. But that's, you know, sort of additionally true in this case because Laura's term was up in March anyway. So even if it weren't otherwise the case, it would be because it's the end of a term. So anybody who is interested, it would be through town meeting. And then if they were interested in running again, they would have to, in fact, run. So does anybody have any questions about that?
I don't have a question, but I wanted to raise something. This is Bara.
Sure, go ahead, Bara.
I was just thinking about this since the last meeting, and some boards have member positions that are just a year. And I know you said it's been hard to fill this position. I wonder if two of the positions could be 3 years and one could be 1 year, and then it might be able to, you might be able to fill it more easily. That's just a thought.
It's an interesting thought. I don't know what the process would be. I'm guessing that is, I'm guessing that's sort of in town organizational structure that it was set up that way. And I don't know what the process that would be for changing that. My own personal opinion, and David might want to comment on this, is that in select board world, in getting to know things, a year feels pretty short. And not that it's not an insignificant commitment at all, but there's a lot to wrap your head around in a year's time. And before, typically how we work things, we have rotating chairpersonship on this board. And sort of the purpose of that is the person coming in is the newest person on the board, typically is the clerk. And then there's chair and vice chair. And part of the reason is that really the duties of the clerk are more to, sign things and do some of the more, menial isn't the right word for it, but less executive type functions. I think that's not a bad time period. You find, certainly for me, my first year, you feel pretty clueless for quite a while. But it's an interesting idea, and we could certainly explore. I'm not sure whether that's state statute or local or how that works, that we would explore that. Eva, it looks like you have a question.
I'm really interested in seeing a 5-member board. Maybe this is not the right time to bring it up, but I would really like to know the process and whether it has to go through a town meeting or how we do it. But I know every town around Guilford, Dummerston, Westminster, I feel strongly that we need a 5-member board, and I would be happy to work with other people on sorting that out. I know we have a heck of a time trying to get somebody to come forward for a 3-member board. I still would like to see us educate this community about the need for public service, and I'd like to see a 5-member board.
Well, and that's one of the reasons I brought it up, is because if there's a 5-member board and 3 of them are 3-year, then 2 could be 1 year. And there are people like me who, I'm an introvert and a highly sensitive person. There's no way I'm going to commit to 3 years, but I could commit to 1 year, and I could bring something really good to the board for that year,
Yeah, no, and I certainly didn't mean to discount that, Barra, in my comments, that a year is not that long. And I don't know, again, I'm not sure. Well, to address your suggestion, Eva, the basic process is that it does have to be voted on by the town. It is not a select board decision. As you know well, there are 2 ways that can happen. It can either be put on as an article by the select board, or it can be petitioned, and as long as there are, I can't remember what the percentage is, but it's roughly 5% of the population needs to sign a petition, and then it becomes an article by petition. So, I have said, and I would say this again, that I'm more than happy to have that conversation going on. So whether David and I would have to talk, or if we had a third person coming on, whether we felt comfortable when it comes to writing articles, whether we felt comfortable putting it on, or whether we felt it should be petitioned for any reason. I'm not sure, but to your comment, Barra, I'm also not sure statutorily. I mean, often, and I don't know whether this is statute is otherwise, but often, for example, with school boards, they do have a multiple array of different terms. And so I just don't know about that, but we could find out definitely if there's a 5-person board, does it sort of automatically include some shorter terms? And I don't know the answer to that, but I'm more than happy to have that conversation ongoing. David, you got a comment?
I do have a couple comments. First, can you hear me? Okay. First comment is, I'm an introvert too in a lot of ways, and I'm halfway through my 3-year term, and I am still learning constantly. And I think that by the end of my 3-year term, I'll probably be a good beginner being a selectman. And I know other people will learn more quickly than I will, but I think the fundamental issue is what Eva said, and that is we need more people to step up. And I didn't step up to do this. She said I got drafted, but in the end, I did get to choose to do it or not. And I chose to do it, but it took a lot to get me to that place. And I know there are other people who are much more qualified to do this job than I am, and I wish they volunteered. And so, maybe a 1-year thing is fine. 1-year term would be fine. But then again, in my experience, it certainly wouldn't have been enough for me. It wouldn't have been.
I want to say to both you and Josh, it is, I don't know about who's qualified, but I know that willing to serve, whether it's in the fire department or on the select board or any of these committees, it's the willingness to serve and to learn is what we're talking about. What we're talking about here.
Yeah, no, and I also would just say, I mean, hearing you say that, David, I'm not aware of qualifications. I mean, as much as anything, it's having a personality that allows you to do it without basically either walking away or being so angry and upset all the time that you're biting people's heads off. And that's the qualification. I mean, you don't have to be a rocket science or an accountant or anything else. And, I think there are honestly very few people who aren't qualified in at least most of the ways that one needs to be. It's, as Eva said, a willingness and an ability to step up. So, yeah, David.
There is a time commitment to this that I didn't understand going in, and you even if you do it just for a year, and to do anything well. But I will agree with you, Josh, that I've learned a lot about humility, listening, and seeing things from a bigger perspective in the last year and a half, and trying not to bring my own personal opinion to it in a way, and remember that I'm trying to represent everybody, not just the people that I might agree with. So, and anyway, I'm glad for your question.
Lisa, I see raising her hand, and Lisa.
Yeah. I just wanted to, as someone who did only one 3-year term, I also have reservations about whether a 1-year position would work, because it really, I agree, it takes a lot to come up to speed. But I do think that having a 3-person board is a lot more pressure on those 3 people to be experts at everything, and a 5-person board might feel a lot more manageable, and just in terms of the sharing the burden and having different expertises at the table, so not everyone has to understand everything all the time. I think it would make a difference in how it felt, certainly.
Yeah, so what I would like to do is, and I'll try and I'll work on this with Karen, but have at our next meeting, not that we'll necessarily make a decision about a 5-person versus otherwise, but try and have a little bit more information available just as to what the statutory requirements are, A, for making that happen, and B, for what it looks like if it does happen, just so we're all a little better informed. So I'll work on that.
Mr. Chairman?
Hang on one sec, Eva.
I volunteered to beat the bushes to see if we could find more than 3 people that would be available. It would be awfully embarrassing to vote in a 5-member board and have no people come forward. So
yes, my guess would be, just based on previous experience, that we would not in fact be able to have those 2 votes on at the same time. I'm guessing we would have to vote in year 1 whether to have a 5-person board, and then in the following year vote on members. But I'm not 100% sure about that. But that would be a good question for us to know.
Let's find that out, because I'm 79.
So your time is, yeah.
My time on the planet might be limited to beat the bushes. All right. Goodbye.
All right. Mr. Fairman, I think you had a comment.
I did, and first I would say, Eva, I think you have no worries. You're only a year older than our next president. Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
I would like to check my understanding. I understand you received legal advice that you do not have to fill the vacancy on the select board?
Correct.
Well, I'm going to challenge that. I am looking right now at Vermont statutes, specifically 24 VSA section 963A. I quote, "When a vacancy occurs in any town office, the select board forthwith by appointment in writing shall fill such vacancy until an election is had." If my reading of statute is correct, and I believe it is because it's quite plain English, you actually are obliged to fill the vacancy now.
Yeah, well, I think our legal counsel would disagree with you, and honestly, I don't know, but I will double check that. Can you just recite that statute again? 24 VSA 964A, is that what you said?
24 VSA 963A.
3A, okay. I will double check on that. You know, it might be that the vagary of the word forthwith would alter what that actually means, and I'm not sure. But he was pretty clear, and he's usually pretty adept at this stuff. So I'll explore that, and I'll know the answer to that too.
Mr. Chairman, so am I. So I've been doing this quite a long time. So as far as the meaning of the word forthwith goes, I guess we can recall Bill Clinton. It all depends on what the meaning of is. But seriously, I believe that you are obliged to appoint someone now. You can consult your attorney, and meanwhile, I'm going to be doing a little research with the Office of the Secretary of State.
Sounds good. No, and we're not trying not to appoint somebody, Howard. We just haven't yet, because we've been figuring out the process. As you know, this whole thing came up somewhat unexpected or completely unexpectedly, and so we've been sort of sifting through it. And but no, we are not looking not to appoint somebody. We just haven't done it forthwith, and we will work towards forthwithness. So.
I have just one question. My question is that if it is voted that it become a 5-member select board and people do not, and you only have 2 people or 3 people, then what happens?
Presumably well, if Mr. Fairman is, well, I guess it would depend on whether that statute reads specifically that it's when a vacancy occurs, or whether it's if there's a vacancy. My guess would be we would at a minimum have the option to appoint somebody. And in fact, based on 24 VSA 963A, we might in fact be obligated to. So I don't know. Good question though. All right. I think unless anybody else has anything, and if you're on the internet or on chat, please feel free to weigh in or raise your voice, because I can't see you all. But if not, and I'm not hearing or seeing anything. Yes, sir, Mr. Fairman.
Possibly I could bring up one. I was had to be a bit late to the meeting this evening, so I didn't get to speak on the matter of items not on the agenda. I could do that now or at the next meeting at your pleasure.
How significant a conversation is it?
Well, not very. I'm just sharing some information about something about which you are aware, having to do with a public health hazard that was remedied.
Oh, yeah. If you want, I think that sounds fairly brief. So, are you looking to get out? We have other business not on the agenda later. Are you looking to leave early, or can you stick with us?
I don't mind waiting. I was just checking.
Okay, let's do that under other business then. So, Karen, town manager's report.
How about equity and inclusion, the appointment?
Oh, okay. Sorry, I forgot. Yeah, I'm going back and forth. So, can you tell us about that?
Yes, so I received an email, and David, you would have received it as well. And Josh, I did forward it to you because it bounced back for some
Oh,
reason.
okay, wrong email address probably.
Yeah, so October 1st at 12:50 in the afternoon. Hello, Josh, David, and Karen. I have been speaking with the members of the Equity and Inclusion Committee about joining and would like to make an official request to the Select Board to join. Joining this committee is an action I have been thinking of in the recent weeks to support our town to become a place that is safe and welcoming to all, and it's deeply important to me. I don't know the next steps, but I'm eager to join in and help our community grow any way I can. Warmly, Swift, Everty, Corin, Kennedy, Spielman, and she is on this, she's in the meeting with us.
Hi.
Hi.
Hey, how are you?
I am good. I have a kiddo in the background, but good. Glad to be here.
That's
Been in a
okay.
bunch of these.
I guess I would say that I think it,
Let me go upstairs. I can hear you. Continue.
I'm pretty clear that the Equity and Inclusion Committee is down a few people, so I'm guessing a new member would be welcome, but I think it would be prudent for me to have that, or for David or I to have that conversation with the chair or co-chairs of that committee before we do appoint somebody. But I'm
Yeah,
guessing.
I was at the last meeting. I've been to the last few meetings, and they said the next thing was to get approved by you. But I think you probably want to hear that from someone else that's besides me, because there weren't any minutes from that. They didn't have quorum, so it was kind of a much more informal meeting, our last meeting. But we chatted about it, and I was like, okay, what's the next step? They're like, yeah, we love to have you. I think the Select Board has to vote on you, and now we're here. But that wasn't an official meeting because they didn't have quorum.
Okay.
I don't know if they know. It seems like you maybe don't know, or maybe they don't know on how the formal next step.
Well, no, I mean, it is correct that we would appoint you, but it would not be unusual. You know, typically how that happens is that somebody, has somebody on a standing committee or, yes, sort of request that they are appointed. So I don't want to discourage you at all, and I'm guessing it will be very welcome. I just feel like it would be probably not fully appropriate for us to do that without having at least had a discussion with one or more of because it's a chair and a vice chair. So but I think that's very likely to easily be able to happen between now and the next meeting. And I would encourage you to stay certainly apprised of their activities. And I'm guessing we would happily welcome you to that committee, but I feel the need to have that conversation first. So, but thank you very much for your willingness.
Yeah, and also just public record, we were talking about it at the Equity Inclusion Committee, of my one sort of hesitation, and some of the other people on the committee's hesitation is a piece of that there is a desire for more diversity on that board, so on that committee. And if there are people that are coming forward that are more, I am a demographic of a white 30-something woman. I'm represented on that board, on that committee, already. And if there are people of color or people of other groups that are more minorities than myself, I definitely would. I think there's only 2 seats right now that are available, and we've talked about trying to make sure that it's diverse.
I think there may be more. We've had a couple people step down, and I'm not sure most recently what our count looks like, but you would be welcome if you want to, and I don't want you to feel pressured if you don't, but if you want to comment at all about sort of why this is a committee of interest to you, that would be welcome.
Sure. Yeah, I think just in general with the I have so many different words for it, but the sensations, the flavor, the intensity that's rising in our country right now, and the way that Putney has mirrored that. And I want to show up for however we can create more compassion, more understanding, more support for diversity in our town, in inside and out, in the detailed ways of how we can get curious about the ways that the select board makes decisions for organizational stuff with the town, as well as actions that are bigger, more town community-based movements as well, to be part of that environment and put in my abilities. I don't have a lot of formal training in this. I've done, I haven't been on a board before, but I'm educated and curious and ready to learn more. And actually, I don't even know if I'm educated, but who knows? I'm educated enough to get curious. So, and even that feels a little edgy to say that I'm educated, because who knows what that means in these day and age. But here I am, and I want to help. So.
Sounds great. Well, thank you. And as Eva has pointed out, and maybe is about to point out again, a willingness to serve is by far an incredibly valuable piece of the importance of this. So, Eva, you're saying something?
Well, I want to say that, yes, come forward with this. And I'm glad that this committee was organized and moved forward. Years ago, I roped Josh and some other people in town into being on accessibility committee. I have 2 titanium elbows and can't open and get into 90% of the doors in town. So we have an elevator at the general store. We have an elevator at the next stage. We have accessible opening to the library now. We have accessible opening to the town hall. We have accessibility opening to the, oh my God, what I want to say, not the bank, but the River Valley Credit Union. And all that came out of this accessibility board. And Josh, because of your training as a medical doctor and your willingness to step forward during that time, the committee petered out. We did some things. We did a lot of stuff. And I think this committee that you're talking about being on, young woman, is a wonderful thing to move forward. Yes, really. And so the percentage of town, we're old folks here, you know? So I hope that somebody, and I'm not going to do it, will come forward and be on this committee that has issues around accessibility, because we need that. Yeah.
Well, that's certainly a clear piece of equity and inclusion as well. And honestly, Eva, it's interesting because I'm sure it's in the language, but I don't remember it having been spoken about quite as much as it probably should be. So thank you for reminding us of that. But and Swift, thank you very much for your willingness. And I would guess that,
just for record, and Karen said it, so my legal name is Corin Kennedy Spielman. Swift Everty is the name that I go by. I don't use my legal name really at all, but I think however, if it's all legal documents, it has to be my legal name, and you guys know what I go by. But okay, just for whenever we go forward with that.
Sounds great. And I think, Karen, you read at the beginning that a letter of interest. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So we have that because that's important for us to have that. So I will touch base with those committee folks, and I would say in all likelihood, we will hopefully see you at the next meeting. And at this, well, you don't have to attend this next meeting or the next select board meeting, but unless there's any objection, I think we are highly likely to appoint you at the next select board meeting. So thank you very much again.
Should I show up to that meeting just in case?
You don't, well, yes, you should, but you don't need to. So yeah, that's up to you.
Sure, but you don't need to. I'll be there.
Well, I will clarify that by saying, if there's a reason that I think you need to be there, we'll let you know that. Somebody will let you know that. But otherwise, no, it's sort of a formality. But of course, we encourage participation at all select board meetings. So, but all right. Well, thank you. Okay, so now, Karen, I think we're on to you for town manager report.
Okay, I'm going to move quickly because I know we have other things. I want to put in front of the select board on your radar that we have 3 solar array projects proposed in Putney right now. I met with the planning commission last night and the 2 companies. They are Green Lantern Solar. There's a 500 kilowatt project going on High-Low Biddy Road. It intersects with River Road. And then there's 2 other projects off of River Road. One is going to be a 150 kilowatt solar array project. And then the other one is going to be another 500 kilowatt solar project. So with the public service now, they request a preferred site letter from the Planning Commission and the Select Board, and they also encourage a letter from the Wyndham Regional Commission for support of these projects. So I'm letting the board know that this is going to be coming to you. I don't know how soon, but it's in the works now.
And you said Green Lantern. Are these who are they? Green Lantern is typically the financier. Who would be the? And I may be speaking. I may, my thinking about that may be dated. I'm not sure, but I'm just wondering. You know, on the corner of High-Low Biddy and River Road, is that landmark related or?
No,
Okay.
it's Eric Houghton.
Okay. And all 3 of them are the same?
No, the
Okay.
other 2 sites, it's the old dump that the paper mill owns.
Yeah.
And then the 2-acre site is like right across like the interstate on River Road.
Okay. So, and how big are the 2 bigger sites? They must be what, 5-acre sites?
One is, so the 500 kilowatt project on River Road encompasses about 8.6 acres.
Yeah.
And then the one on High-Low Biddy is approximately 2.9 acres. These are going to be net metering projects also, which means all of that power source is going to go out to other places.
Right.
And they look at bigger, like commercial, you know, hospitals and that type of schools, institutions. So it's still forming and developing, but we'll have more information as it gets nearer to your table again.
So historically, the PSB has invited but not required us to comment. Is that still the case as far as you know?
So if the enhanced energy plan had been completed, we certainly would have, the Public Service Board we would have had a preference, you know, if we didn't want to cite these. But they don't necessarily need a letter, but
right.
They're asking for one.
But we have the option, right?
Because the Public Service Board may decline the project,
right,
without the letter of support.
Right. So, you know, the other thing that comes up for me about it certainly is that, I mean, a 500 kilowatt system, I'm only aware of one other one that comes close to that, and that within the town of Putney, and that's Putney School at 4.6 or something. And that full disclosure, I'm a member of that board as well, but it's a nonprofit. If these are for profit, then we would also, I think, be likely to be revisiting again in the future the question of how those are valued for tax purposes. Because if these are functioning, Karen, are you still with us?
I am.
Yeah, okay.
Sorry.
Because, when you get to that scale, unless you're a sizable entity that's the consumer, for all practical purposes, you are a small utility. So I think that we would need guidance on what the tax implications for us as a town are related to that as well.
Who owns the land on Hilo Biddy Road, Karen? The one next to the substation.
What was that?
Who owns the land next to the substation on the one Green Lantern wants to do?
Eric Houghton.
Okay.
So I tried sharing my screen, but I guess I can't do it.
It came up for a minute that we had a map on there for a moment.
All right, hold on a minute.
We had a convertible BMW for a moment too, but
yeah, we're not sure how to tax that either.
Okay. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Yes, there you go.
Okay, so here's Hilo Biddy in the corner of River Road.
Yeah.
So this is Eric Houghton's property. So that's the scale of the project. This is the 150 kilowatt project right here. And that's a total of 2 acres that will be disturbed. And I think right to the right of that is the kennel.
Looks like the kennel, yeah.
Yes. And then this one here is the old dump site that the paper mill owns.
Mm-hmm.
And right to the left is the 500 kilowatt array. Now, in the meeting last night, I did ask Norwich Solar if they had any intent of developing the rest of this property. So what they're going to do is lease this section of the property from the paper mill. She also explained that when these projects of this size come into a town, there is tax credits for the town. And there's also a state education tax credit, which is going to be helpful.
Mm-hmm.
But we don't know we don't know what that looks like yet. So they're still negotiating, the lease. Green Lantern, it sounds like they're going to move ahead with that project.
But they don't have Public Service Board approval yet.
No. Nope.
So the one that was on Hilo Biddy, how many kilowatts? Because I thought you said 2 500 kilowatt or 5 kilowatt.
Yeah, this one right here is 500 kilowatt.
Huh. It's a relatively small footprint for that much kilowattage. That's interesting. They must be high efficiency come out. Huh.
And so, yeah, they have they have a whole process they need to go through. So they need a certificate of public good. There's also going to be public hearings on all of these projects. So the public can weigh in on these projects. They have to do a permit application. They need to get permission from Green Mountain Power. So there's an application that needs to go to them. Title work needs to get done. They need to, and we provide the preferred site support letter. Again, it's from the Planning Commission, the Select Board, and Wyndham Regional Commission.
Okay. So yeah, we'll certainly be revisiting this, but I was under the impression that Green Mountain Power was saturated in this area, but I'm gathering their infrastructure must have adapted to that.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, Mr. Fairman.
Green Mountain Power has been mentioned here, and this is actually a consideration. In northern Vermont, they've reached a situation where they cannot transmit all the renewable power that is being generated, and they are forcing people to limit their generation simply because otherwise they're going to burn out equipment, the distribution and transmission equipment. So a question is going to be, one question is going to be, what does Green Mountain Power have to say about these three developments in Putney in terms of their capacity to transmit the electricity?
Yeah.
The other question is, what are these companies planning to do with the renewable energy credits? Are they going to be sold once again to someone in Connecticut, as so many Vermont renewable energy credits have been sold? Which is a way that states like Connecticut get to say, oh, we have renewable power, but they don't have to absorb any of the environmental impacts.
Right. Yeah, it's an offset for them. Yeah, no, that's what I was referring to. Your first point was what I was referring to. Last I knew, Green Mountain Power was saturated for arrays of this scale, but either their infrastructure has changed or I mean, these neither Norwich Solar nor Green Lantern are new to this business, so I would certainly think they would have a pretty clear idea of, and I can't remember who the third provider was, but you know, these are sizable arrays, so I would certainly think they would have done their homework on that, but we'll find out. But the credits is a good question, and yeah, that certainly should come into the public discussion related to it. So. Thank you for bringing that up.
Okay.
Okay, what else do you have, Karen?
So the source protection plan is in draft format. We're doing a second review of it. And Carrie is helping me out, and Mary Quinn. And I'm working with Diana Butler. She's with Vermont Rural Association. And we gathered information from Chris Hayes of Simon Operations. So there's been a lot of eyes on this plan. So we're hoping that we can submit it either late next week or the week after. And I'm only letting you know, and I'm probably, once it's revised second time, I'll send the board a copy of it. I'll be signing off on it. There's no select board signature on it. So
just to be
you in the loop.
Yeah, just to be clear for anybody who might not be familiar, this is our municipal water district source protection plan, which includes looking at an area surrounding our primary water source and what the implications are of activities around it. And this is I don't believe it's, how often is this plan updated, Karen? Do you remember?
Every 3 years.
Every 3, yeah. So it's has to be done every 3 years in order to maintain yeah, I'm not sure exactly what the requirements are, but every 3 years we submit that plan.
Yep.
So.
And so one other comment I wanted to make too is I have a teleconference, maybe a virtual meeting on Friday morning at 11 a.m. with Mary Gannon and Dr. Dottie Morris of Keene State College.
Okay,
so
good.
We'll be discussing training.
Okay. There was a very interesting, you might want to read, Eva actually sent out an opinion piece from Meg Mott that was in the Reformer the other day about the implications of requiring this type of training. And it might be interesting to just address that question and maybe even forward that opinion piece to them in advance and ask them about it, because Meg is likely to have been well informed in her process of presenting that. And I wonder, I mean, I'm not familiar enough with the research that she was citing in order to be 100% clear, but it was an interesting point for anybody who didn't see that. It was basically at least some research has shown that the requirement of bias training, in fact, often is counterproductive and can produce the opposite effect of the desired effect. So what the implications of that are for us, I don't know, but probably a discussion we should have as we, essentially Meg's point is, knee-jerk reactions, which not that this is a knee-jerk reaction, but in the circumstances that it would be, often don't have the intended the intended outcome. So something to ask Mary and Dottie about, certainly.
Good point. Thank you.
Yeah. All right. Anything else for you, Karen?
No, I'm all set for now.
Okay. Other business. I think, Mr. Fairman, we hit your other business. Does anybody else have any other business that we need to address? Okay, I am not seeing anything in the chat and/or hearing anybody speaking up. So if that's the case, and just a reminder, I'm looking at the participants right now. There's somebody identified as JG. JG, if you would like to be in these meetings, we request that you use a full name in this format. It is in fact an open public meeting, subject to open meeting law. So, but I don't see anybody speaking up. Do we have need for an executive session, Karen?
Mr. Chairman, did you forget me?
No, I thought I brought you up. Sorry. No, go ahead, Mr. Fairman.
Okay. Once again, you have received a letter, which I'm simply reading to make it public. It's brief once again. A Putney resident recently left a discarded refrigerator standing beside a road where small children play every day. The door had not been removed nor secured. One or two small children could have climbed in, then died after the door closed behind them, locking them in and suffocating them. I notified the town of Putney. We all were uncertain about what to do on private property. So I checked Vermont statutes and now share in the public interest, 13 VSA section 1310. A person shall not have in his or her possession, where it is accessible to children, an icebox, refrigerator, freezer, or similar cabinet, virtually airtight and large enough for a child to enter, which has been discarded from use, unless the door or fastener thereof has been removed so that a child who enters the same can escape. Local law enforcement soon did on private property. It was taken care of.
Good. Well, thank you. And that clearly serves as a sort of general public service message to anybody who's not informed about it. But also thank you for pointing that out specifically and making sure it was addressed appropriately. Significant danger, obviously, but sounds like any danger was averted. So that's great. Thank you. All right. Karen, executive session?
Not this evening.
Okay. That would be great. Thank you. I know that we have a couple things we need to work on in executive session, so we'll do that. Maybe if we can find a time, we'll do that in a separate meeting sooner rather than later, but otherwise we will certainly intend to have one at our next meeting. So,
Okay.
David.
I'm good. I'm just, go ahead. Yep. Wasn't sure you were done. I was going to make a motion to adjourn, but anyway.
Our next meeting date, that's the last thing. Our next meeting date is, no, that can't be right.
October 21st.
Okay, October 21st, 2020. And we will be returning to our regular timing at 5:30. And tonight it was for personal reasons that I needed to bump the meeting earlier. So thank you all very much for attending. And David, now you're up.
I make a motion to adjourn.
And I will second that motion. And if there is no further discussion, then all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And thank you all for being here and for your participation. Much welcome, and please join us again. Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good night,
Good
everybody.
everyone.